Siana God, hello all. Oshasahiya, good evening, Awado. Thank you for watching. So this is day one, part A of reading Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian L. Weiss, MD, W-E-I-S-S, MD. It says the timeless classic, the true story of a prominent psychiatrist, his young patient, and the past life therapy that changed both their lives. Alrighty, let's dig in. I read it, as you can see, and I'm reading it to our son now. So I thought maybe you would enjoy that too, because it's pretty incredible actually. And it has me thinking about my own experiences, like how many times, right? Anyway, so it says, to Carol, my wife, C-A-R-O-L-E, whose love has nourished and sustained me for longer than I can remember. We are together to the end of time. My thanks and love go to my children, Jordan and Amy, who forgave me for stealing so much time from them to write this book. I also thank Nicole, Pascal, and Nicole, for transcribing the audio tapes of the therapy sessions. Julie Rubin's, R-U-B-I-N, editorial suggestions after reading the first draft of this book were most valuable. My heartfelt thanks go to Barbara Gess, G-E-S-S, my editor at Simon & Schuster, S-C-H-U-S-T-E-R, for her expertise and her courage. My deep appreciation goes to all the others here and there who have made this book possible. Preface or preface. I know that there is a reason. Oh, let me tell you, my cheeks are a little red because if y'all have been following along, I literally for the last couple of weeks have felt under the weather. Got sick like twice, and then like getting my hormones together for fertility and everything on my own has kind of like, it's gotten everything hopefully back in alignment, and because I have PCOS, so that has been a journey, and all that hit at once, and I was just like, oh man. So I haven't been able to actually get out and take a walk like I want to, so that was rough to deal with, but this evening was the first time that I've been able to do that in a good while. And so I took my time, and my body told me, yeah, it's been a while. I know that there is a reason for everything. Perhaps at the moment that an event occurs, we have neither the insight nor the foresight to comprehend the reason. But with time and patience, it will come to light. So it was with Catherine. I first met her in 1980 when she was 27 years old. She had come to my office seeking help for her anxiety, panic attacks, and phobias. Although these symptoms had been with her since childhood, in the recent past, they had become much worse. Every day, she found herself more emotionally paralyzed and less able to function. She was terrified and understandably depressed. In contrast to the chaos that was going on in her life at that time, my life was flowing smoothly. I had a good, stable marriage, 2 young children, and a flourishing career. From the beginning, my life seemed always to have been on a straight course. I had grown up in a loving home. Academic success had come easily, and by sophomore year in college, I had made the decision to become a psychiatrist. I was graduated Phi Beta Kappa, magna cum laude, from Columbia University in Newark in 1966. I then went to the Yale University School of Medicine and received my MD degree in 1970. Following an internship at the Newark University Bellevue Medical Center, I returned to Yale to complete my residency in psychiatry. Upon completion, I accepted a faculty position at the University of Pittsburgh. 2 years later, I joined the faculty of the University of Miami, heading the psychopharmacology division. There, I achieved national recognition in the fields of biology, psychiatry, and substance abuse. After 4 years at the university, I was promoted to the rank of associate professor of psychiatry at the medical school, and I was appointed chief of psychiatry at a large university-affiliated hospital in Miami. By that time, I had already published 37 scientific papers and book chapters in my field. Years of disciplined study had trained my mind to think as a scientist and physician, molded me along the narrow path of conservatism in my profession. I distrusted anything that could not be proved by traditional scientific methods. I was aware of some of the studies in parapsychology that were being conducted at major universities across the country, but they did not hold my attention. It all seemed too far-fetched to me. Then I met Catherine. For 18 months, I used conventional methods of therapy to help her overcome her symptoms. When nothing seemed to work, I tried hypnosis. In a series of trance states, Catherine recalled quote-unquote past life memories that proved to be the causative, C-A-U-S-A-T-I-V-E, factors of her symptoms, which made me wonder how many people, and I'm sure all of us, are affected by things that happened to us in the past in some form or fashion that can be crippling at times, right? Anyway, so I was like, I wonder. Oh, did you catch where he said for 18 months? So he had been seeing this lady for a year and a half using conventional methods of therapy. Anyway, she also was able to act as a conduit for information from highly evolved, quote unquote, spirit entities. And through them, she revealed many of the secrets of life and of death. In just a few short months, her symptoms disappeared and she resumed her life, happier and more at peace than ever before. Nothing in my background had prepared me for this. I was absolutely amazed when these events unfolded. I do not have a scientific explanation for what happened. There is far too much about the human mind that is beyond our comprehension. Perhaps under hypnosis, Catherine was able to focus in on part of her subconscious mind that stored actual past life memories, or perhaps she had tapped into what the psychoanalyst Carl Jung, Jung, termed the collective unconscious, the energy source that surrounds us and contains the memories of the entire human race. And that right there, I believe that you cannot tap into that unless you're guided, right? Or you do a lot of work to get yourself to the point where you can do it, because I think that it's too overwhelming, and that's where you get the people who do like drugs and things to like seek that euphoric feeling, that they're using drugs to elevate their consciousness, their frequency rapidly, whereas our brains prefer to do it over time. And when they tap into that, it's like way too much, and they have to have that. It's not the drug that they have to have. It's the feeling that they feel when they're there in that higher frequency, because that's when a lot of people can hear colors. They can feel colors. They can, all those other things, like they can see things. They can, it's like they can go into different realms or dimensions or whatever it is, if you've ever thought about that. So I think they're chasing that. That's why they say they're chasing the high, right? They're not chasing the drug, they're chasing the high. They're chasing that feeling that they get to. Anyway. Scientists are beginning to seek these answers. We as a society have much to gain from research into the mysteries of the mind, the soul, the continuation of life after death, and the influence of our past life experiences on our present behavior. Obviously, the ramifications are limitless, particularly in the fields of medicine, psychiatry, theology, and philosophy. However, scientifically rigorous research in this area is in its infancy. Strides are being made to uncover this information, but the process is slow and is met with much resistance by scientists and lay people alike. Throughout history, humankind has been resistant to change and to the acceptance of new ideas. Historical lore is replete with examples. When Galileo discovered the moons of Jupiter, the astronomers of that time refused to accept or even to look at these satellites because the existence of these moons conflicted with their accepted beliefs. So it is now with psychiatrists and other therapists who refuse to examine and evaluate the considerable evidence being gathered about survival after bodily death and about past life memories. Their eyes stay tightly shut. This book is my small contribution to the ongoing research in the field of parapsychology, especially the branch dealing with our experiences before birth and after death. Every word that you will be reading is true. I have added nothing, and I have deleted only those parts that were repetitious. I have slightly changed Catherine's identity to ensure confidentiality. It took me 4 years to write about what happened. 4 years to garner the courage to take the professional risk of revealing this unorthodox information. And how many people are literally sitting on like gold mines of information, right? That would truly help all of us in every facet, right? But they are afraid that they will be killed, doxxed, or just considered desirable, like less than desirable, or considered crazy, right? Because then where are you working at? The Goodwill? You know what I mean? Like, come on, like with like no responsibility of people's personal information or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Because they're like, yeah, he can't hurt anybody down in the basement kind of thing if he's crazy or whatever, right? Or undesirable or whatever it is. Suddenly, one night while I was taking a shower, I felt compelled to put this experience down on paper. I had a strong feeling that the time was right, that I should not withhold the information any longer. The lessons I had learned were meant to be shared with others, not to be kept private. The knowledge had come through Catherine and now had to come through me. I knew that no possible consequence I might face could prove to be as devastating as not sharing the knowledge I had gained about immortality and the true meaning of life. I rushed out of the shower and sat down at my desk with a stack of audio tapes I had made during my sessions with Catherine. In the wee hours of the morning, I thought of my old Hungarian grandfather, who had died while I was still a teenager. Whenever I would tell him that I was afraid to take a risk, he would lovingly encourage me by repeating his favorite English expression, "What the hell," he would say, V-A-T, "What the hell," he repeated it. Chapter 1. Let's go. The first time I saw Catherine, she was wearing a vivid crimson dress and was nervously leafing through a magazine in my waiting room. She was visibly out of breath. For the previous 20 minutes, she had been pacing the corridor outside the Department of Psychiatry offices, trying to convince herself to keep her appointment with me and not run away. I went out to the waiting room to greet her, and we shook hands. I noticed that hers were cold and damp, confirming her anxiety. Actually, it had taken her 2 months of courage gathering to make an appointment to see me, even though she had been strongly advised to seek my help by 2 staff physicians, both of whom she trusted. Finally, she was here. Catherine is an extraordinarily attractive woman with medium-length blonde hair and hazel eyes. At that time, she worked as a laboratory technician in the hospital where I was chief of psychiatry, and she earned extra money modeling swimwear. I ushered her into my office, past the couch, into a large leather chair. We sat across from each other, my semicircular desk separating us. Catherine leaned back in her chair, silent, not knowing where to begin. I waited, preferring that she choose the opening, but after a few minutes, I began inquiring about her past. On the first visit, we began to unravel who she was and why she had come to see me. In answer to my questions, Catherine revealed the story of her life. She was the middle child, reared in a conservative Catholic family in a small Massachusetts town. Her brother, born 3 years earlier than she, was very athletic, and he enjoyed a freedom that she was never allowed. Her younger sister was the favorite of both parents. When we started to talk about her symptoms, she became noticeably more tense and nervous. Her speech was rapid, and she leaned forward, resting her elbows on the desk. Her life had always been burdened with fears. She feared water. She feared water, feared choking to the extent that she could not swallow pills, feared airplanes, feared the dark, and she was terrified of dying. In the recent past, her fears had begun to worsen. In order to feel safe, she often slept in a walk-in closet in her apartment. She suffered 2 to 3 hours of insomnia before being able to fall asleep. Now, I'm going to tell you, I knew a person, or I should say I know. Well, I mean, I don't know if she's still that way, but anyway, definitely afraid of water. So afraid of water that she could not even take a shower. Now, I don't know if she could drink water, but I'm just telling you, like, she had to go through a series of like struggles to get herself clean, you know. And I'm going to tell you, reading this book, it most likely was multiple past life experiences, if not one. But anyway, once asleep, she would sleep slightly. Oh wait, what did I say? Hang on. Oh yeah, she suffered 2 to 3 hours of insomnia before being able to fall asleep. Once asleep, hang on a minute. I gotta find where I'm at. Okay, I think I got it. In the recent past, her fears had begun to worsen. In order to feel safe, she often slept in a walk-in closet in her apartment. She suffered 2 to 3 hours of insomnia before being able to fall asleep. Once asleep, she would sleep lightly and fitfully, awaken infrequently. The nightmares and sleepwalking episodes that had plagued her childhood were returning. As her fears and symptoms increasingly paralyzed her, she became more and more depressed. As Catherine continued to talk, I could sense how deeply she was suffering. Over the years, I had helped many patients like Catherine through the agonies of their fears, and I felt confident that I could help her too. I decided we would begin by delving into her childhood, looking for the original sources of her problems. Usually this kind of insight helps to alleviate anxiety, if necessary, and if she could manage to swallow pills, I would offer her some mild anti-anxiety medications to make her more comfortable. This was standard textbook treatment for Catherine's symptoms, and I never hesitated to use tranquilizers or even antidepressant medicines to treat chronic, severe fears and anxieties. Now I use these medicines much more sparingly and only temporarily, if at all. Think about that, right? If everybody would like read this book, understand where the root of a lot of these problems are, and quit pushing other drugs. Hopefully they don't get me for that. That's why I was like trying to say it kind of funny. But anyway, no medicine can reach the real roots of these problems. Exactly, that's what I just said. My experiences with Catherine and others like her have proved this to me. Now I know there can be cures, not just the suppressing or covering over of symptoms. During the first session, I kept trying to gently nudge her back to her childhood because Catherine remembered amazingly few events from her early years. I made a mental note to consider hypnotherapy as a possible shortcut to overcome this repression. She could not remember any particularly traumatic moments in her childhood that would explain the epidemic of fears in her life. As she strained and stretched her mind to remember, isolated memory fragments emerged. When she was about 5 years old, she had panicked when someone had pushed her off a diving board into a swimming pool. She said that even before that incident, however, she had never felt comfortable in water. When Catherine was 11, her mother had become severely depressed. Her mother's strange withdrawal from the family necessitated visits to a psychiatrist with ensuing electroshock treatments. These treatments had made it difficult for her mother to remember things. This experience with her mother frightened Catherine, but as her mother improved and became quote-unquote herself again, Catherine said that her fears dissipated. Her father had a long-standing history of alcohol abuse, and sometimes Catherine's brother had to retrieve their father from the local bar. Dang. Her father's increasing alcohol consumption led to his having frequent fights with her mother, who would then become moody and withdrawn. However, Catherine viewed this as an accepted family pattern. Things were better outside the home. She dated in high school and mixed in easily with her friends, most of whom she had known for many years. So did you realize that he just said that Catherine viewed this as an accepted family pattern? So if you don't think kids are paying attention, they're paying attention, and they are literally going to find comfort and solace because that's going to make them feel like home, even if it's chaotic, okay? And you're going to think, well, why don't they know better and whatever? It's because deep down, they feel like home, and everybody wants that feeling of home when they are kind of like discombobulated from being out in the real world and stuff. No matter how jacked up the family was, or whatever, it, like, literally, they will try their hardest to get back there. I can speak for that. For that one side of my family, I like totally tried, and I was like, holding on, until I realized that wasn't right. It's not for me, and that's not what love is, right? So I distanced myself, and then that was a whole big step in the right direction for me and our family. However, she found it difficult to trust people, especially those outside her small circle of friends. Her religion was simple and unquestioned. She was raised to believe in traditional Catholic ideology and practices, and she had never really doubted the truthfulness and validity of her faith. She believed that if you were a good Catholic and lived properly by observing the faith and its rituals, you would be rewarded by going to heaven. If not, you would experience purgatory or hell. A patriarchal God and his son made these final decisions. I later learned that Catherine did not believe in reincarnation. In fact, she knew very little about the concept, although she had read sparingly about the Hindus. Reincarnation was an idea contrary to, about the Hindus, I thought it was a comma, but it's a period. Reincarnation was an idea contrary to her upbringing and understanding. She had never read any metaphysical or occult literature, having had no interest in it. She was secure in her beliefs. After school, Catherine completed a 2-year technical program, emerging as a laboratory technician. Armed with a profession and encouraged by her brothers moved to Tampa, Catherine landed a job in Miami at a large teaching hospital affiliated with the University of Miami School of Medicine. She moved to Miami in the spring of 1974 at the age of 21. Catherine's life in a small town had been easier than her life in Miami turned out to be, yet she was glad she had fled her family problems. Don't go hang till we meet again. Love you, mean it.